Assalamu alaikum everyone. I'm Zainab and I would like to extend a very warm welcome to all of you on behalf of Dice Analytics to the round 7 of Dice Webinar League 2021. Let's no code machine learning with Naim. Today, the best part is that Mr. Ali Razanjum will be leading this webinar. Mr. Ali has 10 plus years of experience in well renowned telecom companies of Pakistan. His key expertise are in the domain of data science, machine learning, big data visualization, data driven marketing, and customer value management. He's also the co founder and managing director at DICE and also leads data science for non coders training. In today's session, you will be exploring all about no code machine learning and data science, industry use cases, and applications of no code machine learning, how you can do no code machine learning with NIME Analytics platform, and most importantly, how you can become a data scientist with non techie background. I would request all of you to note your questions during this session and ask your queries in the end at the Q&A session. That's all from my side. I hope you all enjoy this session. Thank you so much. Over to Mr. Ali.
Thank you, Zainab. Uh, uh, let's start the oral session. This session is particularly a seventh session in a particular campaign which we started on 12th January 2021. There were in total 7 different webinars, right? And the today webinar is related to, and these different webinars were discussing or targeting different steps or pillars of the data analytics domain. For example, the first webinar was on 12th January. It was all about Excel, that how Excel can be used as a gateway to analytics. Then we had a detailed discussion by Rosera regarding text mining using NIME. Then there was a DWS session. In total, there were 7 different sessions. So the last session which we had was on Saturday, 30 January. It was by Arbab Khan. It was related to deep learning and AI related stuff. Today's session is the last session in the series. All of the sessions recordings are available on our Facebook page as well as on our YouTube page channel. So if you want to watch or review any of the previous webinar, you can go to our Facebook page and you can watch there. So let's go move forward. And the objective of the today's seminar is that how anyone from any background can do data science. This is a single line agenda for today's session. Uh, for the first 30 to 40 minutes, we will be having some of the slide decks where we will be building some sort of a storyline. And then for the last 1.5 hour, or you can say that 1 hour and 20 minutes, I will be using NIME in front of you, and I will be solving 3 to 4 different problems from real world. For example, how we can do implement churn prediction model, how we can predict the employee churn, and the how we can predict a disease in a particular patient based on the certain parameters. So there will be 3 use cases at the end. So and most of the time will be spent on giving you a demo that how we can do data science using NIME without writing a single line of code. So this today's session is some sort of targeted session, particularly for those people who are from non-CS background, and they are quite good in domain knowledge. You can say that they are either marketing guys, they are sales guys, they are HR guys. So these are the people for which this particular session has been designed. So moving forward, again, it's a target training. You can say it's a mini training for those people who are proficient in Excel. Number one, are managers who are looking for the you can say that enablement of their team down the road. They have to hire new people and train them on data science or build data science capability within their team. Then product owners, for example, if you're looking after a particular app within your organization and you want to add more features in your app, then this session will be really helpful for you. Dashboard designers, for example, if you are one of the employee in organization who has to send a lot of reports to his management on daily basis, then definitely NIME is going to add a lot of value in your day on day one. Then the recent graduates, or you can say that anyone, if I cut it, if I write it in a better way, that then anyone who wants to learn data science, irrespective of their domain, this session is the today's session is for them, particularly for them. So moving forward, Again, as I told you that this session is a very targeted and you can say that a customized session, that anyone who has some sort of fear from programming languages, then we are going to discuss that how they can do data science on their laptops, on their machines, without writing a single line of code. And the more important is that we once the session will conclude, we will clear the myth that whether Python and R are the only tools to do data science, or these are the one of the tools to do data science. This will be the very strong objective of the today's session. It will be the very you consider it a very powerful takeaway of the today's session as well. So this overall tool which we'll be discussing today is NIME. It's a quite good tool, and why we have chosen the tool known as NIME for today's session is just because of two reasons. Number one is open source, which means it's free, and the second point is enterprise level tool, which means it's quite stable. So let's move forward. Secondly, NIME is a very comprehensive tool. It's not only limited to data science, it also do a lot of data transformations. Plus, a very good in data analysis and a very strong list of capabilities or features when you have to implement data science using drag and drop tools. People also call it Swiss Army knife because it has a lot of capabilities in terms of data wrangling, data analysis, and data science. Uh, Overall system requirement to run NIME, it's quite simple. Like you can use it on any system. Minimum 8 GB of RAM should be available on your system, and it can be installed on your any of the OS whichever you have on your system. Just a quick introduction at my end. I'm Aziz Anjum. I've just 10 years of experience related to data science and how data science can help organizations to convert data, or you can say that how organization can leverage data science and data analytics to identify new revenue opportunities. Number one, are how they can reduce the expenses to increase the profitability of an organization. I also mentioned my LinkedIn profile here, so you can contact me after the session in case of any query. So let's start. But before starting, I would request few of you to please introduce yourself so that I can have an idea. I will open your mic and I will call the name of the persons randomly so that I can have an idea that what are the expectations from today's session and what we will be like looking forward today out of this particular session as a takeaway. So I would request Amir Jan to please introduce yourself and what are your expectations from today's session. Okay, let's next one is Abidon, Abidon. I have opened his mic. Please, I would request him to please introduce himself. Let me open the mic for Hamza Sajad Ahmed. Can you please introduce yourself?
Assalamu alaikum. Good evening.
Welcome.
My name is Hamza Sajjad, and I done my MS in computer sciences, but I'm mostly in research, and I have done thesis in IoT. And more about me is I was basically working on the research side, and I published my two articles, one in conference and one in journal. But now I think data science is a course subject for computer science, and I don't have much experience in coding. That's why I'm here to just get some idea about data science. I have the idea, but I want to go further in data science. That's why I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Next is Muhammad Ghazi Danish. Please introduce yourself.
Hello.
Hello. Yes, your voice is
Yeah.
too low. Can you please
Yeah.
talk a little bit loudly?
Hey, I am Danish from India, but currently I'm in the Gulf. I'm in Oman, and I just came across your post on LinkedIn, and that's how I found out about the seminar that was happening today. I know I'm a bit late, so I am a data science enthusiast, and I just have very basic knowledge in Tableau and Python and all, and found out about NIME right now, and I'm very eager to learn more about it. And I'm looking forward to this session. Personally, I don't have a lot of experience in data science, but I really hope to gather a lot of knowledge from this session. Thanks.
Sure, thank you. Next, I'm opening mic for Anish Barua. We request to please introduce yourself. Anish Barua. Okay, let's like have two to three more. It's like Atira Raj. Can you please introduce yourself and expectation from to the session? Okay, now let's request to like Christina Esponisa. I've opened your mic. Please introduce yourself and please also tell us about your expectation from today's session.
Hello,
Okay.
can you hear
Hello.
me?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
okay,
Yes. We can.
sorry, I was on mute. Yes, so my name is Christina, and thank you for hosting this session. I'm particularly interested in data science, but as many of us on this um, webinar, I'm a beginner, so I would really want to learn more about it. I'm starting to learn coding by myself, but I'm still a beginner, as I said. So I think this will be a very beneficial um, learning opportunity.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks a lot. So last one, as I'm opening the mic for, let's open the mic for Prashana. I open your mic. Please introduce yourself. Prashana Crawley. Okay. So let's last open the mic for Zubair Akram. Please introduce yourself and tell us your expectation. Then we will move forward towards the
Uh,
session.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, yes, we
Okay,
can hear
great.
you.
Thank you so much. My name is Zubair Akram. I'm basically a product trainer for the largest property portal in the UAE. And since being a product trainer, my tilt is mainly towards becoming a product owner soon within the company. So that's why I'd like to understand the mechanics behind AI. Our portal works quite heavily with AI algorithms. So this is something which I hope to understand even more as to how the actual thing works at the back end, and of course, how can I use it in order to enhance my skill set while being in the company.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Got it. Got it. So let's start the session. If you have any question, please raise your hand so that at the end of the session, I can open your mic and you can ask the question directly as well. So let's move towards the session. Again, just before moving to the session, this is a session, for example, where people are looking for the ways where they do not want to code, right? But yet they want to do data science. This is the core objective of today's session. And the second objective is that everyone who is looking for learning the data science, then based on my learning, I have been teaching data science since last almost now 3 years. Based on my learning, that when people move towards data science learning via Python, then this is relatively a complex path because they had to learn two things. Number one is Python, and second thing is data science algorithms. So if you will start your journey and divide your journey into two steps, like first learn data science, using a no-code tool and then learn Python. It will make your journey quite easy in terms of learning data science, right? This is relatively a complex, you can say that complex journey, but shorter one. While this using 9 is a very simple journey, but little bit lengthy, right? So it depends upon you that how you want to move forward in terms of data science learning. But based on my learning, based on my training, I've conducted more than 20 trainings so far in data science. So I think that this approach should be the followed so that you wouldn't get frustrated down the road and you can easily conclude the data science learning at the end of the day. Let's start with data science. That what is data science? So data science, if I describe it in a very simple words, then the key takeaway from the data science definition is it's a multi-disciplinary field, right? It's not something which should be compared with a core uh, sciences domains. Like for example, it's not a like core mathematics, not a core physics type domain, not a chemistry type domain. Rather, it's a domain which is an overlap of multiple fields. Number one, and secondly, once if someone has to call himself data scientist, then it's not only about that if he had learned data Python, then he should be called a data science. Rather, he has to learn multiple skills, right? Are there are three different pillars of data science. Number one is computer science and IT. It's all about that how to collect data and data transformation. That for example, if data is being collected in a particular format, how I can transform it into next stage or in other format. Then there is domain knowledge. For example, if I call it that I know about telecom, right? That how telecom works, how what are the different departments, what are the key objectives or KPIs of the telecom sector, something like that. Maybe similarly, someone of you will be from education department. He will be have a hands-on grip, or you can say that he will be master of the education process. Someone from you will be from banking industry. For example, Zubair Ikram has just told that he's from real estate industry. Then definitely he has a complete end-to-end domain knowledge of the real estate. So this is something which is called domain knowledge within data science. Then there is like maths and statistics. Basically, these are the algorithms which are called like data science algorithms or AI algorithms. Basically, this is the part from where what is called AI, like this is the core AI related stuff from where we talk about AI, and it's all about that how we can artificially induce intelligence to machines, right? So data science is an overlapping field which is an overlap of three different fields, which start from data collection, data transformation, to domain knowledge, and then to maths and stats. So this is the reason that why data science is considered one of the highly paid jobs. Number one, because there will be very few people who will have grip on actually on all of the three pillars. Number one, and secondly, it's an ever evolving field. So you have to be always like on one side, maybe from 9 to 6 p.m. You will be working for a company for your payroll, but after 6 p.m. you have to wear a hat of student so that you can learn new things. So it's a quite evolving field. So it's quite tough as well, but yet it's quite easy and quite fascinating as well. So summary of this slide deck is that data science is a multidisciplinary field where you have to learn about 2 to 3 different fields down the road. So moving forward, like what's if I have to learn data science, then what's the best way forward from where we can start? So best our best you can say the teacher is Google always. Once we start googling on data science learning tracks, then we come up with a lot of tools and technologies on the internet, right? someone will be reading about Python. If I will give another search, maybe I will be landing on Matplotlib. There is a lengthy list of like tools and technologies which will become a really a big shock for me if I am from non-CS background. That oh man, this is so much to learn here. Maybe this is something very difficult. Number one thing. Thing. The second thing is that it's coding. Like when we search on Google, it's only about coding. Like you will find a lot of things that without coding you cannot do data science. Or you can say that data science is all about coding. It's all about IT people, right? So by the end of this session, we have to clear this particular myth that, for example, data science is not only for IT people or not only for CS background people. Anyone from any background, right? Even a doctor, even an MBBS doctor can do data science using different tools. So once, like for example, a person like me who Googles it, and he will be sitting like a monkey in front of laptops. That oh God, this domain is not for me, right? Because there's coding, there's a lot of like tools which I have to learn, right? There's a lot of stuff like so I will close the lid, my laptop lid, and then I will move away, or I will turn on my Netflix account and I will start watching new seasons on the Netflix in recommendation list. But the today's session is moving across a single objective, that out of this cluttered learning track, how Dice Analytics can help you to build a clear path for your journey for your data science learning track. So let's start that how we can learn data science despite the fact that I'm not like a coder type person, but still I want to learn data science. So we have to clear 2 to 3 things. Number one is that data science is a multi-skill field where you have to learn about 3 different skill sets, right? So if a person from either he's from IT background or non-IT background, from day one, out of 3 skill sets, he's already enabled for one of these skill sets. For example, if I talk about computer and IT background person, then definitely he will be quite good in data handling and data collection part, right? But on other side, a non-CS background person has to learn about these things. While moving forward towards business knowledge, here IT guy was getting an edge, but when it comes to business or domain knowledge, here non-IT guy, a non-CS background person will be getting an edge. That here IT guy, IT person has to struggle for learning. Then move towards maths and stats, where data science algorithms or AI algorithms exist. This is the point where both have to put an effort, right? You can say that from day one, there is a 1.3 compliance, and people from IT background or non-IT background has to learn 2 additional skill sets. Both have to work on their learning tracks in a particular direction. So moving forward again in this learning track, for example, when it will be about learning tools and technologies, here IT person will have edge. Then moving forward, when it's about understanding algorithms, math, stats behind data science, here both will be equal. Then the last step is business domain knowledge. Here actually a person from a non-CS background will have an edge, right? So eventually in this learning track, either you are from IT background, either you are from non-IT background, you have to struggle or you have to put equal efforts. And neither this domain, data science domain, should be considered or associated with only CS background people. Anyone from any background can do data science, right? So moving forward again, as I have reiterated again that, and I'm emphasizing a lot that both have to put equal effort. The only thing is about the pillars that IT person will be struggling here, but the technique non-CS person will be struggling here, right? Eventually, both of them, this is a domain where they have to put a lot of effort. So let's start from like a basic question that okay, so this is the point that everyone can do data science, right? But from
Hello.
where this Python, hello, yes,
Hey, how are you?
I'm good.
Good, thank you. Well,
Uh,
I was just driving back and on a webinar right now.
I was talking about Python and R, that from where this particular Python and R based languages emerged, and what are their importance, and are these the only tools to data science, are there or other tools exist as well in the market which can be used for doing data science or implementation of data science. For example, most of you would have used Excel, and particularly those people who have at least a 1 year of experience, they would be very familiar with the Excel. That without Excel, you cannot, you can't imagine to spend your corporate life, corporate, you can say that corporate life or job in day-to-day life. So Microsoft Excel is a basic data analysis tool which is quite widely used. While moving forward, as compared to Microsoft Excel, the Python and R, if you figure out this bottom numbers, for example, if you have a smaller data set, you will prefer to analyze data using Excel, right? If you have, for example, even up till 1 million rows, it's easy to use Excel for your data analysis, and your overall progress or pace in terms of data analysis would be quite fast. But as the data size will start growing, then Excel wouldn't remain your buddy, right, to do data analysis. This is the turning point where dedicated languages like R were initially introduced, like data analysis languages, where the purpose was that if the data size will grow, then how we can do data science, right? This is the main objective. So similarly, down the road, another language emerged named as Python, right? It's a quite generic and quite powerful tool, a language as compared to R. Now it's widely being used. Secondly, first, and the second point is that it's not only a language which can only help you in terms of data science, but it can also help you in a lot of other stuff as well, which can be a good sporting tools or good sporting capability to do data science, right? So this is the purpose that as data science started to grow across organizations, people started to figure out new tools, and Python and R became familiar out of those. Why Python and R became familiar for analyzing large set of data was number one was it was a community driven like concept, like rather than that it should be an intellectual property where people have to pay to use these tools. It was a community driven initiative where like people like you and me sat on a table, they discussed an idea, and like you can say that a quite bigger workforce which was even not imaginable by any organization to be hired, people worked on their own, and they started to develop Python with a particular purpose that Python and R should be helping people to do data science, a lot of data science, or you can say that to process a lot big data sets. So that was a community driven initiative. The second point was the contribution by community back to the Python servers or Python language. For example, if Ali sitting here in Pakistan is working on a particular problem statement, he developed a solution for it. What he can do is that he can contribute this particular solution to society, a community, so that someone like you can say that, for example, Christina sitting here in a particular country in USA, she have to solve same problem. Instead of you can say that instead of reinventing the wheel, and instead of doing complete effort from scratch and spending same time which Ali has spent while solving that problem, so she can take a shortcut, and she can just like use same work which Ali has done while sitting here in the world and at another place. She can import that work into her environment, our workspace, and she can actually start working on a problem statement from a point where Ali had left or contributed back to the society. So this is going to increase the productivity of Christina quite a lot. So these were the reason that Python and R type languages got quite familiar. So, but again, once the Python and R gets familiar, on other side, it also become a quite big demotivation from non-IT people, or people who are not in even CS background people. Like there can be people who are not like comfortable with data science. They will be more comfortable with GUIs, UI based tools, and UI related stuff. So there can be also people from CS background as well, right? So how to kill this fear, or you can say that how to convert this demotivation into a motivation. So for this particular purpose, now how the people from non-CS background and CS background move towards data science learning track is that a person from IT background will prefer to learn data science and R. Rest of the two steps will be same for non-IT background person as well. But a non-IT guy person will prefer use drag and drop tools for data science, right? So this is the main objective or purpose of the session, that what are the option for these non-IT guys, and one of the option which we will discuss today is nine, right? So these are the different tools which can be used as an alternate to Python and R. For example, RapidMiner is free. Here is SAS Miner, its name has been changed, but it's paid. Here's Nime, it's free. Again, this is paid. This one is paid with some trial. Its name is also changed. Here's Orange Analytics, it's also free. But why have we choose Nime? Just because of its community support. Because if you will start working on Nime, then you can easily get a lot of work already being done by other people across the globe. And instead of reinventing the wheel at yourself, you can just go to their Nime Hub. It's like a Play Store where anyone working in the world can publish his work on Nime Hub, and someone sitting on another corner of the world just can import his work for free, right? So that's the reason that why we prefer Nime. So again, that the journey which motivated Python and R, right? Same point, that to analyze a large amount of data, same motivation was behind these different tools, these drag and drop tools as well, right? So to cut the story short, that the purpose of the Python and R type languages is almost same. What does the Nime? Or you can say that the objective of Nime or the benefit of Nime will be same as what benefit Python and R can post on the table, right? So here's again a Nime. I've told you that it's an open source tool, and enterprise readiness, it's quite stable and something like that. So uh, so there was a question named as, it was by, I guess, machine learning. What about, it was by Ahmed Abid. So if I talk about machine learning, that what is machine learning, then I can safely say that here's like AI, then there is machine learning, and then there is data science, right? AI can be, oh sorry, machine learning can be a one of the pillar of the data science, right? But data science umbrella is much bigger than machine learning. In machine learning is the basic set of tools and technologies where I've told you through which we actually artificially induce intelligence to machines, right? So moving forward, this is actually the machine learning. So machine learning is a subset of data science, but data science is a relatively bigger umbrella. That's why it's getting hype, because this is the point where organizations try to invest because data science is a domain from where organizations are going to get their money back in investment which they have made going to made on their data scientists, on their systems and other things like that. So this is the point. And secondly, one more thing which I want to highlight difference between machine learning and data science is machine learning is more like a technical or more mathematics and statistical oriented domain, but data science is a techno-commercial domain. It's a domain where you have to learn about domain knowledge, and secondly, a point where we have to learn about technical stuff as well, like how to collect data and other stuff as well. So moving forward, let's jump to like three of our use cases which I've shortlisted to give you people a confident that even if you people do not know about coding, then how you can solve same problems which are being solved by expert of Python and R using tools like KNIME and RapidMiner. And the main purpose is objective is without writing a single line of code, right? So the objective are the three use cases which I have shortlisted for demo are number one is churn prediction, right? It's mostly like it's a domain known as predictive modeling in data science, where we use data to predict outcome of a particular event, or you can say that based on historic events, we try to predict the outcome of a particular customer, a patient, an organization, something like that, right? Second is churn. I will also explain churn moving forward, that what is churn. But again, all of the things will be being done using data science. So the next use cases which will be solving using KNIME is that prediction of the heart disease, right? Again, without writing a single line of code. And the last is that how we can predict employee churn. These are the three use cases which I have logged for demo at your end, and I will be implementing it in front of you without writing a single line of code. And now let's start working on one of the problem statement. Although I will just like add a slide here and before jumping forward, that the use cases which I have logged so far, or that whether they are only the use cases which we can use in data science, or there are other things as well which we can do in you can say that in data science domain. So for example, just give me a second please. Like in data science, we can use it to solve a lot of problems, right? For example, one of the problem is future prediction or predictive modeling. Second thing is clustering or segmentation. For example, if I have a bunch of customers, like in terms of millions, how I can segment it into multiple groups based on different data points. The next thing is association rules. You can say that frequent pattern matching. You will see a lot of applications of association rules on YouTube. For example, YouTube recommendation, SoundCloud, e-commerce, Netflix, where system is recommending you the next content, best content for you, which you should watch on YouTube, on SoundCloud, on Netflix, or on e-commerce store, which are the next product you should explore on a particular e-commerce platform, right? These are the major three pillars. Then there is also another pillar which comes under data science is graph theory, which usually is being used by a lot of social media platforms. For example, Facebook, LinkedIn. These are the platforms which are heavily using graph theory from one of the pillars of data science, where we try to explore the connectivity among the different people of the like our circle or something like that. So we in our today's session we will be only focusing on application of these things, like how we can predict future, or you can say that predictive modeling, that based on historic data, how we can judge the outcome of particular decision by a particular customer. Let's start. For example, we I will be talking now onwards on churn. Then I will move towards heart disease, and then I will move towards you can say that about employee churn. So churn is a very common problem and a quite big problem for any sort of organization. Either it's small, it's large, right? It's a very common business problem. Either a company who is a telecom company, a banking company, a e-commerce store, a Netflix, everyone is facing churn problem, right? And it's a very well, you can see that very a big level of headache in the marketing team, that why our customers are leaving us. For example, in telecom, if a churn definition is if a customer won't use his SIM card for 90 days, then he will be marked as churn, right? In banking, usually practice is that anyone who is using, you can say that same haven't used his SIM for 1 year, he will. Sorry, a banking customer who haven't used his account for 1 year, he would be marked as churn, right? The main problem is that organizations have to manage their customer base, and it should be grown on every month, on year basis, on you can say that on every day your base should be kept on growing, right? Here you will be getting new customers, new sales, you can say that. Then there will be a customer who will be leaving you. These are the customer, and out of these customer, a portion of your customer will be reviving back. So it's all about devising a strategy that how we can grow up this circle. Instead of shrinking this circle, if this circle is being shrunk for a particular business, then that business is going to be in very, you can say that in hot waters very soon. So this predictive modeling, this is the umbrella of predictive modeling, and using predictive modeling, you can predict any of the event in your data based on historic data. For example, you can predict customer churn, you can predict customer usage, you can predict employee churn, you can predict service degradation, even you can predict whether a customer will return his loan or not, right? Or for example, whether a customer will buy a particular product of Tesla or not. So it's just the bigger umbrella is predictive modeling, and these are the different applications which can vary from domain to domain. So when we talk about, you can say that about predictive modeling, this is a high level, you can say that flow diagram of a predictive model. That how we train a predictive model based on historic data using data science and machine learning techniques to predict the future outcomes based on current data. For example, if today it's January or February, and let's suppose based on historical data, and I'm talking about from September 2020 to last, let's put 3 months, it's August and July, I can say June 2020 to September 2020. Based on historical data, I want to train my machine that, for example, who will be the customers who will be churned in September till Jan time period, Jan 2021. Once the model will be trained, we will place it here. Now the second step is that when I have to make future predictions based on the learning of the historical data, I will place Jan 2021 till let's put last 4 months are October 2020 till Jan 2020 data, into model which was trained on historical data, and then I will get the prediction that okay, these are the XYZ customers who are definitely going to turn off their SIM or switch off their mobile from 2021 till April 2021. This is the power of predictive model, or you can say that this is the power of data science, where we are going to calculate, or you can say that predict a particular outcome of a customer, of a patient, of an entity, right? That whether he is going to make a particular decision or not, right? And if you notice, this is the time we still haven't arrived on calendar, right? This is the true power of data science, or you can say that when we particularly talk about predictive modeling, that based on historical data, we train our machine, we artificially induce intelligence into our machines, and then we use same intelligence, which is called as model, to predict the futures of customers, of patients, of an organization based on the recent data. This is the high level, you can say that workflow of a data science training model. So let's like have a quick video, watch a quick video where you can have an idea that what else can be done on data science, and then we will move forward toward building our first data science model using Nine. Hey guys, I guess I haven't shared the voice. Let me share again. I hope now everyone will be able to listen to the voice.
What is predictive analytics? Transforming data into future insights. Predictive analytics is a category of data analytics aimed at making predictions about future outcomes based on historical data and analytics techniques such as statistical modeling and machine learning. With the help of sophisticated predictive analytics tools and models, any organization can now use past and current data to reliably forecast trends and behaviors milliseconds, days, or years into the future. Retailers often use predictive models to forecast inventory requirements, manage shipping schedules, and configure store layouts to maximize sales. Airlines frequently use predictive analytics to set ticket prices reflecting past travel trends. Hotels, restaurants, and other hospitality industry players can use the technology to forecast the number of guests on any given night in order to maximize occupancy and revenue. Predictive analytics can also be used to detect and halt various types of criminal behavior before any serious damage is inflicted. By using predictive analytics to study user behaviors and actions, an organization can detect activities that are out of the ordinary, ranging from credit card fraud to corporate spying to cyber attacks. Models are the foundation of predictive analytics. They are the templates that allow users to turn past and current data into actionable insights. Some typical types of predictive models include a customer lifetime value model, which pinpoints customers who are most likely to invest more in products and services. A customer segmentation model groups customers based on similar characteristics and purchasing behaviors. A predictive maintenance model forecasts the chances of essential equipment breaking down. A quality assurance model spots and prevents defects in products and services. Model users have access to an almost endless range of predictive modeling techniques. Many methods are unique to specific products and services, but a core set of generic techniques is now widely supported across predictive analytics platforms. Decision trees, one of the most popular techniques, rely on a schematic tree-shaped diagram that's used to determine a course of action or to show a statistical probability. The branching method can also show every possible outcome of a particular decision and how one choice may lead to the next. Regression techniques are often used in banking, investing, and other finance-oriented models to forecast asset values and help users understand the relationships between variables such as commodities inventories, and stock prices. On the cutting edge of predictive analytics techniques are neural networks. Neural networks are algorithms designed to identify underlying relationships within a dataset by mimicking the way a human mind works. While getting started in predictive analytics isn't exactly a snap, it's a task that virtually any business can handle as long as it is committed to the approach and is willing to invest the necessary time and funds. Beginning with a limited scale pilot project in a critical business area is an excellent way to cap startup costs while minimizing the time before financial rewards begin rolling in. Once a predictive analytics model is put into action, it generally requires little upkeep, as it continues to grind out actionable insights for many years.
This is a quick introduction of the predictive modeling. That what is predictive modeling and how you can use it at your end to build that to solve different problems. So now let's move forward towards overall core data science. You can say that life cycle where it can be easily divided into three different steps. Number one is related to data handling. Then there is a second step which is mainly related to AI or ML part. This core step. Second step. And the third step is storytelling, that how you can represent the output of your model to your audience, to your top management, or to your decision maker within your organization. So let's suppose, for example, in our case, we have logged a particular problem that our churn is increasing, right? And we have data about the customers, about their voice usage, about their SMS usage, about their recharges. And now these are the two steps where we explore different data points within our ecosystem. Then we ingest and transform them into a particular format. Now the last step is ETA, where we actually build confidence over collected data. For example, whether the collected data is accurate enough to solve our churn, ever increasing churn or not, right? This is the main objective of step number one. Once we will move forward, then the data which I will be using in my demo has in total 21 columns and 3300 rows. And if I explore the data further, here is the first column where it's a phone number of same number of the customer. Then there is a last column, it's named as churn. This is my outcome. So if I move forward, then this is the customer identity. Then there is a churn flag, and the middle columns are known as customer profile. For example, before switching off his SIM, what sort of usage a customer was portraying or having on his SIM. So these columns are being used for that purpose. So if we further move forward, as I have told you, the data which I will be using is a data from 2014 from an actual telecom company in USA. Although it's a quite old data, but quite good to understand the overall life cycle of data science in a quick way using NIME. Further, if I mention the dates, then this data describes that, for example, from 1st July till 2004, 1st April 2014, that customer, what was the customer profile based on 3 months before his decision of churn. And these are the 3 months based on which we are populating the churn column. And churn column may have two values. Number one is 1 and second is 0. 1 is being assigned to customers who have churned or who have turned off their SIM, and 0 are the customers who are still using their SIM in the particular time period which we have explained here, right? And secondly, these are the columns which we will be using to predict the customer churn. If I explore it further, or I explain it a very basic manner, then based on these predictors, these are the predictors, I want to predict that whether customer will churn or not, right? This is the overall value of the data science, that the relationship between a particular input and output can be easily learned by machine using different machine learning algorithms, right? So let's move towards 9, and I will be doing it in front of you on 9. For example, here's the interface of 9. I am going to create a first workflow on 9. I am going to name as my first churn prediction model, and let's click it as finish. I will get a empty canvas named as 9 workflow editor, right? Now, for example, the data set which I have explained in front of you, I'm going to import that particular data into my 9 tool. But before that, I would request everyone to please, within next 1 to 2 minutes, read the description of these columns, what these columns or what sort of information these columns are carrying. You have 1 to 2 minutes, so that once I will be working in 9, you can build a correlation, or you can say that you can build a background in your minds once I will be calling any variable. So you have 1 to 2 minutes. Please read the description of each column. So I hope every one of you will have read about the description of these columns. And now I am going to import this data into 9. And while I will be working in 9, you people have to make see it from a perspective that there will be no coding involved. Everything will be drag and drop. For example, in 9 we work in the form of nodes. Nodes can be found here in node repository. For example, here is a file reader node. Now, if I want to use this node into my workflow, right, or in 9, then I can easily drag and drop here as much as node I want to drag. For example, if I want to delete those nodes, I will just select them and delete them, they will be deleted. So let's configure this particular node. For example, for this particular node, uh, if I have to open its configuration, I can right click it and configure it, or I can double click it, I can open it. Now I'm going to read that particular data. Let's suppose that particular data is available on my laptop in a particular directory. I'm just going to locate that. For example, here's the data set which I want to use. It's a churn named as churn prediction data set. I just click it. Oh, sorry. Excel reader node. The data is available in Excel file. I will just browse the location. It's available in my E drive. Here's the data set which I was displaying you in my presentation, right? I've just selected the location of my file, and rest of the schema was automatically being judged by 9 tool. I've just clicked it OK. Then I'm going to execute it. To execute it, I will right click the node and then click in execute. And now the data, that particular data which I was displaying to you in slide deck, it's been in front of you, and now it's been imported into 9. So here is the, for example, you can see that the description of the data which has been loaded into 9. There are 3300 rows and there are 21 columns. So the next step is that, for example, I usually use this example a lot. That if I have to train a student, then to gauge his accuracy, learning in a quite like confident oriented manner, then let's suppose I will pick a book number one. Then I will divide that particular book into two parts. For example, I will divide out of 100 questions, 50 questions as a example, which I will be teaching in a baby steps to my students in class. But for the remaining 50 examples, I will be using those examples in the exam hall, right? And those examples will be actually, for example, will be the true test for the students, that if a student has to solve unseen questions in the examples or in the exam hall, then I can build a better confidence over the learning of the students, that now they are intelligent enough to solve any unseen problems down the road. If I'm going to give same examples which I have gave them in the class while teaching a particular concept, and if I will give same examples during the final exam as well, then definitely students marks will be high, but I would have low confidence over the student learning, that whether he will be unable, he will be able to handle down the road that the scenario outside the world. So to implement this particular step, it's like, here's a partitioning node. Those who are already working with data science, this node can help us to divide the dataset into trained and testing dataset. To build the connectivity between these two nodes, I will just click here and then I will connect it here with a partitioning node, which means I'm asking KNIME to read data from this node, this particular data, and feed it to this particular node. This node is known as partitioning node. The purpose of this node is to split your data into two parts. Why two parts? If you look at the partitioning node, then there is only one input and two output. So the configuration of the node, which is visible in front of you as of now, it's asking KNIME to divide the data set into two parts. 70% of the data should be placed on upper port, and 30% of the data should be placed on bottom port, right? And the division between 70% and 30% split should be purely random, right? So if I click it OK and execute it, then here I can see the data set. And to have a summary of the data, I can just like place my arrow here and it will show me the summary of the data. For example, here I was feeding him this node 3300 rows, but it has divided the rows into two different parts, two different sets. 2300 rows has been divided into this particular set, and remaining 1000 rows has been split into this particular set. So once the data is ready, the next part is that we have to use a particular algorithm, right? For example, we will be discussing decision trees in our today's session. So there can be multiple nodes in KNIME. For example, here are the data read and write nodes. Here are data manipulation nodes. Then the last one is the analytics nodes. This is the core repository in KNIME, or you can say that subset of the node repository, where we can find data science oriented algorithms or machine learning algorithms. For example, for today's session, to show you a value of the KNIME, I will be using decision tree learner. And the main purpose of the decision tree learner or targeting decision tree for today's session is that it's visualization. This is one of the data science algorithm which can show you its learning in terms of visualizations. So secondly, there is a predictor node as well. I will place it here. Then there is another node which I want to place it to build a data science model in KNIME is Scorer node, right? So let me build the connectivity. For example, if I connect it here, I will connect it here. I will connect it here. Then out of this, I will connect it here, and I will connect it here. To better understand the life cycle of a data science model, I am going to change the comments here so that people have an idea. And the best example which comes to my mind when I tell someone that what is data science or what is predictive model, I use following example. It's like that how students are, how children are being trained in a school or in a university. For example, this is like a book selection by teacher. Then this partitioning node is like teacher is dividing a book into two parts, and these parts can be like part number one, set of questions which he has to use in class, right? And part two is set of questions he has to use in exam hall, right? This is the benefit of partitioning node or the value of the partitioning node. Then this is like learner nodes are like classroom environments where teacher is training students on a part number one set of questions that, for example, this is the particular question, or you can say this was the particular consumer behavior, and in future whether he was making a churn or not, right? This is something like that. Then this should be termed as exam hall, where I will be asking him that, okay, what you have learned in class, please please examine, come here in exam hall and validate your learning, but on a part two set of questions, on different set of questions. And the last thing is like paper checker, or you can say that it's like a scorecard, a result card of the students, right? So this is a very basic or crude form of our predictive modeling. So now let's move forward. If I go to decision tree learner, I will be spending a lot of time on this particular node. I will explaining its power one by one, step by step, that what value actually data science bring on table, right? So for example, if I go there, my objective was to find patterns that what should be the what should be the customer profile based on these columns, and based on these profile how I can judge that whether a customer will churn or not. For example, these set of customer with this set of profiles haven't churned or haven't turned their sim, but this particular customer with this particular profile had actually turned off or switched off his sim down the road, right? So if I go there, then if I figure it here, then the churn column is not visible. So when you talk about data science learning, the major time is spent on learning that how a particular, you can say that how a particular algorithm will work, in what particular format data is required by this particular, you can say that node or algorithm, or how it's going to produce this output. So if I go there in class column, the churn column is not visible. The main issue is that for this particular algorithm, known as decision tree algorithm, it has to accept the output, particularly the problem statement, which is being modeled in the churn column in terms of textual data. Here, if you can see it, is the S mentioned, which means it's a string-based data. It can only train itself on string-based data, right? So to bring churn here, I will place another node here known as number to string. Here it's been placed. Then I will configure it. I'm asking it to only convert data of churn column, which is being categorized as numeric data mentioned at I, into a string based data. So if I look at the output of file leader, here the churn is mentioned with I, integer type data, but right after this node, the data is being termed as string or textual data. So again, once I will move forward, then I can see here churn, right? So I will select churn here. So based on this configuration, what I am telling to my NIME tool or to my machine learning algorithm, that please find the relationships or find the hidden patterns between a consumer profile and his decision of churn, right? This is what I am telling it through drop and down menu to this particular tool. So if I will execute it, it has been trained. Now, as of now, this model has been trained on 3300 rows. But what has been learned by machine so far? Let's explore now this. For example, if I go here decision tree view, then it's going to display me its learnings, right? That how it has learned about the customer churn decision based on his historic usage or historic pattern. For example, if I look at this basic tree, then if you can see it here, it's telling me that in your data set there were 2300 customers, out of which 2006 customers haven't churned, and there's a basic summary or distribution of customers, that there were 14% customers who have churned in your data set, and there are 86% customers who haven't churned within your data. Then if a customer has made more than 3.5 calls on your helpline, then this probability of churn will increase from 14% to 52%, right? But if a customer has made less than 3%, then his probability of not churn will increase. If you can look at the numbers, then these numbers are being like increased. The second number to be judged is, for example, in bottom of every node, there are 91.7% people, right? This is 2140 customers of this particular data set, 2300 customers. Or you can say that the information being described by this particular node is applicable on 91% of your data set. The information being described by this node is applicable on 8.3% of your data set, right? I can explore it further. For example, if customer has made more than 3 calls on helpline and he has been charged with less than 27 rupees in the daytime calls, then even the probability of churn will further increase from 52 to 80%, right? And if I read this rule, it can be read as like that there are 3% of customers who have made more than 3 calls on helpline for their complaints, and they were charged for less than 27 rupees in daytime charging. There are only 69 customers, or 3% of your total base. They have a probability of churn roughly about 88%. This is the learning which is being done by based on different data science algorithms, right? So based on these, I can explore it further. It will just make each and every combination of predictor versus output. For example, these are my predictors, and based on these predictors, it's tracking a rule that how it can figure out that when a probability of customer churn gets increased and when a probability of customer churn decreased, right? So I can expand it, I can print it, I can place it on my system, but this is just for like representation of the information what data science algorithm that learn. So now let's move forward. Now I'm moving to next predictor column. And before moving to scorer node, or after giving an overview of scorer node, I will be again coming back here, and I will be telling you that when someone called about data science, right, then what actually he's learning, or what is his core, you can say that knowledge for which he is being highly paid, or what are the most why it's most demanding skill set as of now. So as of now, a student has been trained. I have pushed him to exam all. Now I'm asking him that please solve these questions, but place their answers in this particular column or this particular section. I have named a new column as prediction column, and I'm asking my student or any student that please apply your learnings, these learnings on the data side, set number 2, and place your results in this column. If I execute it, here I can see that there will be a new column at the end of the tab as prediction. This was the actual answer behind the book. This is what student has solved, right? You can say that this is the book question at the end of the book, and this is the question or answer which student has solved. So once the paper has been submitted, now I am passing it to the scorer node. It's like paper checker, where I'm asking him that please build a result card for this particular student based on the answers mentioned behind the book. Number 1, these are the actual results, and the second column is what student has solved in the exam hall. I'm making just like an apple to apple comparison. I will click it OK and I will execute it, and here I can see the result. Here is the result card of the student, which was being trained for predicting the churn of the customer based on certain variables. 91% of the time, he was able to make a right decision that if he said that this customer wouldn't turn off his SIM, then customer didn't turn off the SIM. If he said that this customer will turn off the SIM, then the customer actually turned off his SIM, right? So 91% of the time, his predictions were accurate. So this is the result card. This is also called Confuse matrix. But before moving forward, if you look at the this workflow, let me zoom in. Then it's quite simple. Like this was the first time I was building it in front of you, but I have trained a basic churn prediction model, and you have seen that I haven't wrote a single line of code during my session during building this prediction model, right? And why I choose decision tree models for your understanding, because it's quite easy to visualize. Number 1. Secondly, if I move forward, I can even use 9 to describe these rules, that what will be the customer behavior that a customer will make a decision to churn. For example, I'm going to place another node. I will just configure it and execute it with default configuration. And now if you look at my screen, then you can easily figure out the information or its learning on the provided data set. For example, this decision tree has learned that if a customer state will be WV, his charging minutes or revenue will be less than 37.95 minutes. He wouldn't be making any international calls. His day charge minutes will be even less than 44 rupees. And he have made less than 3 calls on helpline, which seems to be a happy customer. Then most probably he wouldn't churn. Like his outcome will be 0, which we have mentioned in our data set as non-churners. And then moving forward, this rules was observed against 48 customers, and based on the testing data set, this rules was considered, or this rules was found true for 48 data customers. Like if I can say that if customer will have following, you can say that behavior, then there are 100% chances, 48 by 48, that customer wouldn't make a churn. You can imagine that if someone would have, particularly people who are working in Excel, if someone would have asked you that, okay, here are 20 columns, please make an analysis in Excel and help me to figure out that which of the particular column is having more impact on customer decision of churn. You can say that what is the relationship between customers' night minute usage and churn. Definitely, it was going to take a lot of time. But the power of data science can be felt from this particular node, that all of the permutations, all of the complex statistics and data analysis techniques was just applied by a single node, right? This is the power of data science, that if you want to do something by a non-data science method, then definitely it's going to a lot of time at your end. But these data science tools and techniques helps you to do same thing with just single clicks or few lines of code. This is the power of data science, right? So now let's move forward that when someone talks about learning data science, then what actually he's talking about, right? Or when someone talk about machine learning, that you should learn machine learning, then what he should actually learn. For example, if you have observed that in provided data out of 20 variables or 20 features, why he placed a customer service calls at the top, why day chart minute wasn't at the top, why the state column was not at the top, right? So this was because this decision tree algorithms figure out, or you can say that it will iterate the data set one by one for each column, and it will check that which particular column or feature has the most impact or a very strong relationship with the churn behavior. Out of these 20 variables, it will iterate them through one by one. First, it will iterate to this, then this, then this, then this, then so on. And based on the variable, which he will find that okay, this variable is having a quite strong relationship with churn behavior, it will keep it at the top, right? Even the pain point where we had to figure out each and every variable, that which variable would have the most impact, the algorithm will work in a way without any configuration, or you can say that without any supervision from your side, that it will place the most impacting variable at the top, right? And secondly is there's a configuration, and further in data science there are technical topics as well, that for placing a particular variable at the top, there are two methods used in the decision trees. One is gain ratio, second is Gini index, right? I won't go into technical details of this stuff, but I'm just explaining the different configurations available in KNIME, and just telling you that each and everything can be done by a non-CS background with respect to a data science algorithms or data science requirements. The second configuration I want to explain is the minimum number of records per node. For example, I have configured it for 2, right? Which means if I go to decision tree, then there are nodes or rules which were only applicable to one customer. From business point of view, you can say that from business point of view, these rules were only applicable on a very small chunk of my customer base or very small chunk of my business, they are actually useless from business point of view, right? If we want to exclude those nodes, we also call it a pruning step, like it's like reducing your tree, or building a tree which is a more useful from business point of view. I am going to tell my KNIME node that please do not build a node until unless there will be 30 customers in the rule, right? If I click it OK, 30, and now if I will execute it, now you will see that now the decision tree size has been reduced, right? Why it's been reduced? Because now I have told him that do not build a node if there will be less than 30 customers, right? You can see that now decision tree is less complex, right? And much more generalized. Even I can see to rule set where descriptive rule sets can be extracted, that number of rules has been reduced. Like I have found a rule which is actually applicable on my majority of base, and it's quite healthy in identifying those people who would not actually churn, right? This is the benefit of this particular configuration in my dataset. Since my decision tree has been changed, new learning has been came in. I have to again send my student to exam hall. I have to again ask him that please solve this paper, and I will again build a new scorecard for him. And now if I can see, if I go to config metrics, the tree has been simplified, but the accuracy has been dropped from 94% to 92%. That's a quite slow, marginal decline in accuracy of the student. You can say that in the scorecard of the student. But yet the benefit is that now I have got a much simpler decision tree learning, a decision tree, which is also providing me good nodes as well. For example, if I go here, and there are 66% of the customer who have less than 37.95 rupees spending in daytime callings. They are not following, they do not have any international plan, and there are 97%, there is 97 probability, 97.3% probability that they wouldn't turn off their SIMs, right? The people are the customer who will have following behavior. Only 2.7% of the people will show a churn behavior, right? So this is the overall flow chart. Then moving forward, if I look at here, that what if, for example, out of this decision tree, if I want to, let's suppose I see that this day charge column should be at the top. It shouldn't be at the bottom or at second layer. Let's suppose even I can say that, let's suppose evening charge should be the topmost node or topmost splitting criteria. This thing was being done systematically based on the impact of that particular variable on the churn. But sometimes you need an option where you want to enforce, you can say that a particular feature or behavior on your decision tree. You can just go here and you can select it here from here. That true split, please bring on top evening charges. Here is okay. Then execute. Here's the result. Now you can see that now on top there is evening charge minutes, and now shape of decision tree has also been changed, which means again my student learning has been changed. So again I have to send him to exam hall, then again I have to execute it, and here is the confusion matrix again. Accuracy has been dropped relatively more. For example, we have been moved from 94% to 90%. But the point to tell you is that for doing anything which is associated with data science, there are a lot of tools which can help you to do the data science without writing a single line of code. For example, before moving forward to employee churn example, I'm going to, let's suppose, tell you a next configuration this particular variable. For example, let me move towards that I do not want to enforce anything. Let's build model where only 2 nodes can be acceptable. I've built this decision tree again. So look at the new configuration which I'm going to explain. Here you can say that for state, for every state value, it has created a new node here, right? But now I still want to keep the state in place, but I want that the smaller node should be merged together and should be converted into a bigger node. This can also be done using this particular option. I will click it here. I'll make it okay. And now you can see that in front of smaller nodes with 2 to 3 customers with respect to states, now the state column has divided the data set into 2 sets, into 2 different binary splits, and states with a particular value has been placed into a one node, and states with other values has been placed into other nodes, right? My decision tree has been again shrink to a particular type, you can see here, right? So if I move forward and I can again check my accuracy of my node, that whether my student learning has been improved or not, you can say that we are again back to 92%, right? So before moving to employee churn prediction example, this was a basic workflow which I have developed in front of you to give you people a confidence that doing data science shouldn't be linked or considered that you can do data science only and only if you are from IT background and you can code. The answer is straight away no, right? I have solved a basic churn prediction model, prepared a basic churn prediction model in front of you, where I haven't wrote a single line of code in my workflow. This was the first time I was doing it in front of you, but believe me, if you will start it using, then it wouldn't be more than 5 to 10 minutes of work building a basic iteration of data science model within 9. So now I will be moving towards next, you can say that example, which I have to solve in front of you. That's the employee churn. Here it is. Rather than now building a decision tree, or you can say that a model from scratch, I have pre-built it for your consumption, and I will just explain in it that how decision trees or data science models can be used to predict churn of an employee. For example, here's a data where against every employee ID, there is a column which is describing whether a customer has left us or not. Like attrition is like leaving your current employer, right? Yes mean he left his current employer. No mean he didn't left his current employer. Then here's another data set where I have a lot of information about my employees. You can see it here, right? For example, his age, his or her age, how much frequently he travels, his daily rates, his department, his distance from home, how much kilometers he's living from home, education field, employee count, then employee number, right? There's a lot of information which is available in the data set. And now based on these data set, based on the profile of that particular employee, we want to predict whether a customer will leave us or not. And there are 35 columns. You can say that based on these profiling attributes of employees, we want to predict whether an employee will leave us or not. Then here is a joiner node. The joiner node is just helping me to join the data from two different streams into a single mega file based on that ID column. Here it is. Once executed, you can see that previously attrition column was in a different table or file. Now it's been joined into a single table. This is what our people who are working on Wheel Excel, they can easily map it with the VLOOKUP node. Next is rule engine, where I'm just like, you can say that I'm just trying to convert business travels data into a numeric format, right? I can easily just type the rules here for this particular node here. I will type it here. I will place my like check, like what if business satisfaction is low, what should be the value it should return for this particular rule, right? I have just again executing it. The node has been executed, and now output will look like this. Now moving forward, I'm just like deleting it as of now. Now the color manager node is like helping me to make this data set more visually appealing. For example, in attrition column, if there is a no, then it should be marked as blue. If yes, it should be marked as red. Then okay, I will execute it. You can check the table that now different colors has been assigned. For example, if attrition is yes, this row will be marked as red. If this attrition is no, then this will be marked as blue. Every churned employee, a left employee will be marked as red, and every staying employee will be marked as blue. Then his partitioning, as I have told you, should be considered like class environment versus exam hall environment. Then if I move forward, I will just execute it. Here I will execute it. And I go to rule table. Here are the different rules which can be used by HR teams that when a customer will leave, when an employee will leave us, right? So it says that, for example, rule number 1 says that if total working years with a company of an employee will be greater than 2, he wouldn't be spending no overtime, that then he wouldn't leave you, right? Now, same rules can be visualized from here as well in decision tree. Again, this is the benefit of color manager node. It helps you to visually represents the ratio of churners and non-churners or probability of churners and non-churners of particular employees. For example, if I go here, if a employee is spending overtime, his job level is less than zero, like he's on relatively smaller positions or lower position, and his monthly income is less than 2400 USD, then there are 72% chances that that employee would leave you very soon, right? So now you can check that this is the value of these data science algorithms. And if I move forward, again, I just told you that you have observed that this thing, your data science thing, the only key learning which you have to focus for while you're starting your data science journey is that how these algorithms work. For example, there can be other algorithm as well. For example, logistic regression. There can be naive-Bayes learner. There can be neural networks or XGBoost, right? So these are the different data science algorithms which actually comes under training node. The next thing which I want to highlight is the color of the nodes. Like different nodes have different colors and every node will have different configuration. The most difficult part for any CS background or non-CS background is that how these algorithms work and what can be the different configuration. For example, if I show you, this is the configuration of decision tree, but once if I want to train a logistic regression, then its configuration little bit change. Most of the time it's same, right? But there will be a slight change in the algorithm as well, configuration as well. Like I can train as much as algorithm I want, is the answer. And even the last thing from data science capability point of view is I want to explain it in yourself to show the capability of 9. Please start posting your questions in the chat window. I will also open your mic meanwhile, and I will try to answer each and every question which I will receive. And meanwhile, I'm just like wrapping up the session, and I'm going to show another capability of 9 here. Um, for example, you can just imagine the power of 9 using this particular example. Here is another node. I'm just going to place it here. You can say that instead of selecting different algorithms one by one, I will just, you can say that train all of the models at once. And I'm going to configure this that please train all of these algorithms based on these features. And my target is to learn about attrition or about employee churn. And please train the model. It's being trained. Once it will be trained, I will also show you the output of this particular node, and I will also show the power that just in few clicks, how it's been training and iterating through each and every algorithm of data science. You do not have to write a single line of code. You do not have to do any sort of coding. The only thing which you have to learn is that what are different outputs or configurations of these nodes, and these configurations, or you can say that these learnings are constant. Either if you are doing data science using Nine, if you are doing data science using Python, if you are doing data science using R, how decision tree works in Nine, what are the different configuration parameters? You will see same configuration parameters in Python and R, same configuration parameters in Nine. So this learning, these algorithms are constant irrespective of any tool. Now, for example, this node has been executed, and now you can see the output of this particular node. Here is the output of this particular node. What it did, that instead of trying each and every model one by one, this node has trained bulk of models for me for predicting the employee churn, right, with a better accuracy. There are different parameters which we can check. For example, if we check at accuracy, then the highest accuracy is being provided by logistic regression algorithm. It's roughly 0.88%. Number one. Secondly, here are different parameters it is showing. These are the AUC ROC curves, which are particularly another method of validating the data science model. Then here I go. Then I can see the confused matrix. I can play with it. I can find a better probability threshold by just few clicks, right? And again, the point I was going to tell you that if you want to, or you can say that the last takeaway before I start question answer session, that if you want to learn data science, I would request or I would suggest to divide your learning curve into two steps. Number one is learn data science using Nine, and in second step you will learn Python. So it's like breaking the complexity of data science learning tracks into two parts. First, you should learn about Nine, about data science using a drag and drop tool. Then you should jump so that your journey would get difficult. If you are going to learn data science plus Python in one go, then your journey will be relatively complex. But for example, even if you are from non-CS background, if you will only learn data science using Nine, still you will be able to do each and every bit of data science your system, and then so on, right? So that's overall from my side. So if you people have any question, please raise it on your question answer section. So let me answer question one by one. So first one is from uh, Gonse Blas. This question is related to what do you think? Is it possible for an economist to enter data science with background in business and management, leadership, and organization strategy? Yes, definitely. I've told you, but rather my learning is a data scientist who is coming from a domain knowledge, a business side, can actually create more accurate models, and more important, he will be able to sell his model in a much better way to his management, to his top tiers, and other people as well. So definitely it's a yes from my side. And as I've told earlier as well, if you are from any background, even if you are MBBS doctor, still you should learn data science, number one. And secondly, still you can do each and every bit of data science using drag and drop tools, right? So next question is related to a question is raised by Sumedha Sani. So you can ask your question directly as well, Sumedha Swani. So I will be moving to next question. I couldn't understand is which one is most updated. Can you please rephrase your question, Nandan? Can you please uh, rephrase your question so that I can have an idea that what's the actual answer? Uh, then there is Walid Sodoi. Who do you know how do you know the robustness of the model? Do you compare predicted and actual? Like for comparing the robustness of the model, is there can be multiple methods. One of the method is holdout method. For example, in our case, that splitting your data set into training and testing or classroom environment examples and exam all example was one of the method to test the robustness of the model. There can be other methods as well, but the best robustness testing approach is k-fold based approach, where we train models on different sets of data and test it on a multiple iterations of data. So k-fold method is the best method to you can say that the robustness of the model. Now, the next question is how do you clean data? Maybe they are not with the right format and lacking value. As I told you that this NIME tool has the capability not only to help you for the data science, but it also, you can say that it also helps you to translate or improve the data quality of the data in hand on which you have to train the model. So that's why we call it also Swiss Army knife, that it can do everything for you from data wrangling to data transformation to data analysis to data science. So now next question is again with Walid Sodai. Is there any pre-processing in NIME? Yes, it has a lot of tools and a lot of nodes when it comes to pre-processing. Particularly the nodes here in manipulation. This is a like you can say that hundred of thousands of nodes which are only purely designed for data transformation. Uh, Mohammad Manan, will we get notes for the video? You won't get notes for the video. However, video recording will be available on our Facebook page. Ahmed Javed, in order to learn NIME from scratch, what are the resources? There are 2 to 3 major resources available for learning NIME. Number one is NIME public recorded courses on YouTube. Dice Analytics also offers 8 weeks long extensive courses on NIME. Next iteration of the NIME based data science learning will be starting from 3rd of March. It will be a Saturday and Sunday based class, 4 hours on Saturday, 4 hours on Sunday, and 8 hours a week on weekend, like 4 hours divided on each day. And it will be a 8 weeks long lengthy class. For detailed content of the course, you can visit our website. Abdul Aziz Khan, so it's better to have in your Excel file as much as column possible. It's better to keep relevant columns only. You can say that this is the power of data science, that out of all the data feature in hand, data science is going to tell you that which of the columns will be relevant and which of the column wouldn't be relevant for you, right? This is the core value of data science. So if you ask me from a data science perspective, then I would ask you that place millions of column in Excel files, and rest of the thing just leave it on me, leave it on NIME, leave it on Python, leave it on I will figure out the relevant columns for you. But if you ask from a data engineering point of view, then I will ask you that please, to save the storage, please keep only the relevant columns in Excel file. But that's the value of the data science skill set, that it's going to tell you that out of these columns, these particular feature, out of, for example, 100 columns, only these 20 to 30 columns are relevant for you. Ahmad Javed, can we solve computer vision problem using NIME? When it comes to computer science or core AI, NIME is relatively not as good as like TensorFlow or Keras or PyTorch. but yet it can solve computer vision problem as well. Can you export the learned model from KNIME to be used on somewhere else? Yes. It exports predictive markup language, which can be used to export any data science model. Here you can click to any of the tool. For example, a model trained in KNIME can be productionized using Python. I will just hand over this PML file to the production environment, and I will ask him, please schedule this, right? So it can easily integrate its learning with any of the tool in the world through PML language. Last is next question is Latabai. Yes, it can recognize traffic signs easily, and the based on basic image processing, you through KNIME you can easily do it. For example, if I people show you here the overall, you can see that KNIME reading tools, you can read images, even you can use audio files here. You just like type a node here, you will find it here. This is used in only survey, and please send me recorded video of the lecture. You will get it through our Facebook. Next question is from Gonsi Blazes. No, you cannot access the underlying code uh, behind a node. But once you will download the KNIME, then you can download two things. Number one is executable code. Number one, and second thing is the second version is this is like a drag and drop type tool. If you want to go through the code behind these nodes, this tool KNIME has been written in Java. You cannot directly check its code behind the scene. But if you want, if you are keen and if you're interested to explore the code behind these nodes, then you can download a recompiled version of the KNIME from their website. It's easily available. Viral Siddiqui, thanks. And Mr. Andy, any guidance on data cleaning for inventory system where asset count, consumption, or retirement require a prediction? This is something which I can tell from this perspective that KNIME can you can say that clean any sort of data in any format, but like in terms of guidance, like I cannot give any guidance unless I would have a look on the provided data. Furqan Ghani, yes, you will receive the email alerts. Once the session will be ended, there will be an automatic email alert generated, uh, which will be mailed to you. A second option is in 1 to 2 days on our DICE Analytics web page, everything will get uploaded. Uh, the next question is Uzair Nazir, do not is related to Mike. So I hope all of the questions are answered. However, still few hands are still raised. Again, I would request Sumida Sani, please ask your question if you are in mind. Next, I'm going to give mic to Akib Javed. Please ask the question if you have any in your mind.
Yeah, you hearing me? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
So I have two questions. Basically, they are related to each other. So my first question
Yes.
is, if you have basic understanding of code like Python, so you still recommend that person to have a basic understanding or somewhat a professional understanding of KNIME. And my second question is, in our market in Pakistan, there are few opportunities of data sciences. So where a person stand who only know about KNIME, not the coding.
Okay. You can say that it depends. Number one question is that, for example, if a person knows about Python, whether he should learn KNIME or not. Definitely, learning a new tool or skill set is always beneficial in your career, right? So it's irrelevant. It's along with the Python and R you're going to learn KNIME or not, right? And secondly, this session was particularly designed for the people who are from non-CS background or who are not comfortable with coding, this particular session, 2-day session, was designed or conducted for those. So in your case, if you are good with Python and R, if you will learn 9, it will be like a new feather in your cap. But if still you wouldn't learn 9, then there is no issue at all. The second step is like in Pakistani market, there are a lot of jobs. If people say there do not exist a lot of jobs, then that's I wouldn't accept it. The only issue is the only myth in our market exists is, for example, I was given a speech in another on weekend. If slide deck is open, let me check if it's still open. I haven't closed it. Here you can see the slide deck which I used there. Here is a big myth which I explained to people, that learning Python shouldn't be treated as like a learning a data science, right? Data science is a bigger umbrella, and you can do data science using Python along with other tools as well. So we have a big myth, we have a big misconception in market that okay, if I can write a good tool code in data science in Python, then I should be considered a good data science. This is not true, right? Data science is a combination of multiple skills. Particularly, for example, if I go here, data science is like wearing multiple caps, multiple skill side. And once your day will start, you will be acting like an IT guy. At 10 a.m., you will be working as a data analyst. At 11 a.m., you will be working as a business person. At 12 p.m., you are working like a data extraction guy, right? So each and everything you have to be wear a different cap in your 9 to 6 p.m. job. So that's why learning data science, learning Python shouldn't be considered like learning a data science. It's just like learning a tool. One of the other option which I recommend to people if they want to start their good career in data science is that they should also learn about Excel, number one, and they should be also proficient in SQL. Then based on those 3 to 4 skill set, they are going to be like marked as a good data scientist or average data scientist or operational data scientist. This is the answer.
Thank you, sir. Thank you,
Uh,
Ali.
any other question? Please raise your hand. You can type in text window. Otherwise, in next 5 minutes, we will sign off. If you have any question, please raise your hands. Zainab, is there any question on Facebook?
No questions on Facebook, sir.
Okay. So I guess then let's call it a day. I hope you people would have learned new things in today's session, and that would have remained quite beneficial in your career.
Okay, so that's all about the webinar. To all the attendees, we hope you enjoyed this session. Thank you so much for participating. We have mentioned an email in the chat section. You guys can email us for the recording or any queries regarding our trainings at info@diceanalytics.pk. Data science for non-coders training is starting from 6th March 2021. Classes will be on weekends, Saturday and Sunday both, from 11 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Thank you so much, Mr. Ali. We had a great time on this webinar with you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks everyone for joining. Thanks for your time today. Take care. Bye bye.
Take care. Allah Hafiz.